Hello, everybody. My name is Nick Pan, and I'm the Artistic Director of Collaborative Arts Institute of Chicago, and I'm one of the regular hosts of Heard Over the Piano, CAIC's online discussion series. If you have any questions for any of our guests tonight, or if you notice anything go technically crazy, please just throw that in the comments on Facebook, and I will do our best to ensure that technical issues get addressed and also the questions get passed on to our guests. But thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited about tonight's guests, who are our performers for tomorrow's Winter Leader Lounge, baritone Edward Nelson and pianist Ronny Michael Greenberg. Guys, if you'll join me, that would be fantastic.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
how are you guys?
I'm doing well on this fine Thursday evening.
Doing well as well.
So, our audiences, this is your first time with us, so this is really just a chance for us to get to know you. I mean, I know you, obviously. We met out here in San Francisco. You guys are stars of the San Francisco community and the world community as well. But so, I know you, but this is a chance for CAIC's audiences to get to know you. So let's just start pretty basic. Eddie, why don't you tell us where you're from and how you got into singing and where you studied and how you got to here?
Okay, so here begins my novel. No, I am from Southern California, a suburb north of Los Angeles called Valencia. And yeah, I got started because I sort of, it was in the family. My uncle, I don't have a lot of musicians in my family. I have a lot of musical people, but the only professional musician was my uncle. And he, when I was young, lived in Switzerland, and every summer he would come back from Switzerland to LA and sort of take the whole family to the Hollywood Bowl, which is this big amphitheater where the LA Phil plays during the summer. And we would see tons of classical concerts. And although I was like a typical child and definitely was bored by it when I was very young, there was like a turning point. It was a concert of Yefim. I literally remember it. Yefim Bronfman, and he was playing the Rachmaninoff Second Piano Concerto, and I just like I was like, "What is this? This is amazing!" And so I started taking singing lessons. I started being interested in classical music. I actually started taking piano with my uncle's old piano teacher, who at that time was 90 years old. I really like got lessons from a legend, and that was the beginning of my classical music journey. I In high school, I was sort of a jack of all trades. I did everything from just straight plays to musical theater to choir, and all different jazz choir, classical choir, all different kinds. So when it came time to go to university, I sort of wasn't entirely sure which direction I wanted to go in. I really liked jazz, but I hadn't been doing it for that long, and so push came to shove, and I ended up going to sort of a general vocal performance degree at Cal State Long Beach in Southern California, where wherein I could kind of decide whichever direction that I wanted to go in, and then of course I went the opera route. So after 2 years in Long Beach, I transferred to a conservatory, like a good little classical musician in Cincinnati, Ohio, CCM, and stayed there for 6.5 years, and that's where I kind of learned everything. So,
Wow,
and
that's
then
quite
it was
the journey.
now.
And so, Ronnie, tell us your life story.
Well, thanks so much for being here, everyone, and it's a great pleasure to be featured on Heard Over the Piano, and we're so excited to share with you our program tomorrow. So, I also, like Eddie, discovered music through the piano, but it did not turn into an operatic singing career. It stuck with the piano. Um, I'm originally from Montreal. I grew up in Montreal, and my parents were born originally in Romania. They did have music in their families. My mom played piano growing up. She wasn't professional, but she always loved music and they were both always very supportive of my musical endeavors. and crucial, really, for that development. My dad's uncle was the first violinist of the Bucharest Philharmonic back in his day. So there definitely was something in the blood or in the genes, you can say. But when did it really happen was when we moved into our first house. I was 8 years old, and there was a upright piano in the house. And I just started playing it. And my grandfather, when he would come over to our house, he always was conducting to Beethoven symphonies and things like that in his home. But he would just start singing things, and I think he was the first one to teach me how to play just like a C major scale on that upright piano. And I immediately fell in love with it. I started taking lessons with a local piano teacher who was warm, welcoming. She didn't hit my fingers with a stick. And she really taught me to love music, which I'm so grateful for, because I think for all of us, this journey has many challenges on the road. And developing that love for the music from early on, I think really helped me overcome and get through those difficult times, just because I loved it so much. So I started going to taking theory and ear training classes at age of 10 at McGill Conservatory. That was in Montreal. And I continued taking lessons privately. I had a lot of different teachers. And I learned a lot of different things, I guess, from all of them. But I left Montreal at age 17 to go study in upstate New York, which was a very freeing kind of experience. I was 17 and going to college. It wasn't a different country, but only 2.5 hours away from Montreal. So I was not too far away from home, despite being in a completely different culture and environment. I remember it. I didn't have any friends. But my first friends were singers. I don't know how it happened, but they befriended me. Maybe they knew that I was going to be playing for their voice lessons.
Because you're the best pianist.
They asked me to play for their voice lessons, and I'd never done anything like that before. And I said, sure, why not? And then I played for their recitals, and it was just kind of immediate, that collaborative interaction and bond was just so special and powerful for me. I immediately fell in love with vocal collaboration at SUNY Potsdam, Crane School of Music. That's where it all really started in terms of the operatic and vocal collaboration path. And it's really led me here until today. That's where my love of art song and love of opera began.
Cool. And so where along these paths did your paths converge?
I'll take it. Okay. So after my years at Cincinnati, and he left out that he actually went to Yale after SUNY Potsdam, but yeah, exactly. Brush your shoulder off. So after CCM for me and Yale for him, we both ended up in the same summer at the Merola Opera Program in San Francisco, which is, for those who don't know, the summer program sort of run out of the San Francisco Opera. And we did opera there. I mean, I was there to sing Don Giovanni, and we were just always coaching arias and, trying to be opera stars. And then there was this audition at the end of the summer. It was 11 weeks, so we had known each other quite well. And it was an audition for this recital series that the San Francisco Opera Center hosted every year. And you had to offer 3 art songs. And I don't think I knew you were a song person, Ronny, at that point, and nor did you know that I was a song person, but we were both really song people. Like, CCM is really a place of learning how to sing, and they spend a lot of time on art song repertoire, even within the opera degree. And so, we sang some Ravel and Ives and I forget what, Duparc for this audition. And it's one of those experiences where you kind of like look at each other after and you're like, oh, like that was pretty great. Like this is a good collaboration. Yeah. So since then we've done, I don't know, as far as we've done a lot of opera together at San Francisco Opera, but we've done, I think this is our fourth full, totally separate recital program together. So we've done about 4 hours of music together at this point, concert music.
Yeah, our first, I'd say, big one was one that we organized ourselves. We just said, why don't we just put together something, and we did the whole Die Schöne Müllerin cycle in San Francisco, and we invited everyone, and we got the venue, and it was just so great to organize it and make it happen. And yeah, we're gonna actually do some of those songs that we did in our first concert tomorrow too.
I remember that concert.
We always like to relive our old flame, just a little bit each time.
That was where I first met you.
That is where I first met you, Ronny. Yeah.
At the Die Schöne Müllerin?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
I remember watching that concert and thinking, we got to get these guys to Chicago. So thank you for sort of making our dreams come true in this
full circle
moment. Yeah, exactly. And so I love that you guys decided to, it sounds like you had that sort of magical connection that is sort of that je ne sais quoi between singer and pianist. And it's so hard to describe that to people about how, we all end up having to work with other people at times, but when we kind of come back to these special relationships like the one you guys have, there's something different, and it's always so difficult to explain that to people. But do you want to try?
Sure. Well, I'll explain my experience of it.
Okay.
Actually, should I let you go first? No, I'm going to go first. My experience of it is that, I have, because the singer, the pianist also is very familiar with the text as well. They are, of the same brain, the text dictates the music, the mood of the character and the mood of the text dictates both the voice and the piano. But because at our first rehearsals, in order to even enter into my side of it, I have to learn the text. So I immediately have a lot of thoughts and opinions and, let's see if we can try it this way. Let's try it this way. And, some pianists also come in with a lot of opinions, and that can be a little bit of like a friction. And Ronny and I know each other so well that he knows that I need that playroom in the beginning to feel it out, and he really gives me that space, and we arrive at the solutions together in that way, kind of by saying, oh, what if we tried it this way? And then he'll come back and say, oh no, but this makes sense to me sort of more in this fashion, and we eventually arrive at something we're both really stoked on.
I feel the exact same way, and all I would add is that there's this spiritual connection. That's really what I think that happens between two people. There's a unification of two souls, not to be kind of too out there or cheesy about it, but I do think that there's something indescribable there, but it's really like a relationship. It's not like you're dating, but it's like you're really being vulnerable with another person. And I think with Eddie right away, we just understood each other and we saw each other. And I think we understood, we had a similar sense of humor. I think that was a part of it. The humor always helps for any friendships or any relationships. There was just a connection with that humor, I think, from the beginning, but also with the seriousness. I think from the beginning, I was so taken aback by how much he cared about music and how powerful it is. And then I felt the same, and that just made me want to show how much I care about it. So it kind of brings out, it's almost like in a relationship, you're bringing out the best in each other. And so as a unit together, you can create so much more than just by yourself.
That's so sweet, Ronny. He's never said those words to me, by the way. So if it takes an interview to get it out of him, then I'm thankful.
I'm like your relationship counselor. It's fantastic.
Yeah, the marriage counselor.
It's true though. These relationships are, they are relationships, obviously, but there is something very spiritual about them. And obviously it's because there's music and poetry involved. So you're going to be kind of looking to channel some sort of higher plane or deeper plane. And the ability to do
there
that.
is a vulnerability to it, to working in this medium together, because in opera the challenge is to show up prepared, like with my interpretation of this role, like infallible sort of thing. But when you're listening to like hair conductor tell you exactly how to do it. But when you're just collaborating one-on-one, like you're experimenting and exploring together, which means, okay, oh, can you try that note a little softer? Oh, I cracked in front of you. Like there's this thing where it's like, oh, we're not infallible. Like we make a lot of mistakes, and in order to feel safe as a performer doing that in front of somebody, you have to be okay with being vulnerable, and that's not always easy with every single person that you collaborate with. So when you find that it is easy kind of intrinsically, it's an easy thing to just kind of step into further and further.
Super valuable. I mean, it's invaluable, really. I mean, and the funny thing is, being an artist is all about being vulnerable, but then, so often we're in these positions where we don't feel we can be. And so, like you say, this is precious.
Yeah.
I'm so interested that, you guys met each other, you had this wonderful sort of spark musically and, spiritually, artistically between you. And then you decided that because you had that, you had to self-produce something. That's really interesting to me. Can you tell me maybe like what was the inspiration behind that, and also talk about your willingness to do that? When I was a young artist, I would not have had those that gumption to do that kind of a thing. So I want to know like why you're so smart.
I'll reply first for this. So, because I think it was sort of a mutual thing that happened, in terms of planning it. But I think at that point, I think we had just finished the Young Artist program at San Francisco Opera, and I think after the Young Artist program, the schedule, everyone has different schedules at that point. But there was this opportunity and suddenly time available to, either look for work or create the work. And I loved being in San Francisco. And my impulse was like, can I make it work here? Can I stay here? I love this city, and I don't want to be away from my wife so often, if possible. But I knew Eddie was in town, and I knew he had a lot of work going to Europe and all sorts of places to do his work. And I thought, well, why don't we try and do something together that we create? I mean, we have a place in mind. We have emails of people who we think would be interested to come hear us. And I guess I just wanted to do it with Eddie so much. And it had been a while, and just something kind of separate, really, because it was always relating to someone else telling us what to sing or programming it. And I was like, what do we want to do? Like, what kind of music really inspires us now? And we're both big Schubert nerds, so I think we decided that we needed to do this cycle. And we spent, we had also the luxury of time to kind of work on it. We love that, to be able to kind of dig into every song over weeks and get into that whole world, which is not always the case. We don't always have that luxury to dive into music for that long for all sorts of gigs. But yeah, I think it was scary. I remember it. We didn't know who would come. We didn't know if
we were like, no one's going to come to this. And
then
it was out.
I figured the worst can happen is that it won't go well, and then we'll forget about it and we won't try to do that again.
Yeah. As you say it, it's, it really does map to a year ago when the pandemic started and our schedules again ceased to be dictated by obligation. So like when we graduated from the Adler program, the Young Artist program at San Francisco Opera, we were there 6 days a week, sometimes 12, sometimes even like 14-hour days. You know, we were busy, we were heavily utilized, and you're just in this whirlwind for like 2 years, and you don't have time to think about anything else. You're just trying to have a success at that thing, which is such a monumental responsibility that you're being given as a young person. And yeah, then it's something intrinsic in us that we even when we're not being dictated, even when it's not dictated what we are to do with our time, we are yet still compelled to try to do music and try to present music to people in some fashion. And it was an experiment, you know, back in, what was it, 2018?
2018. 3 years ago.
Wow. And also 1 year ago, at the start of the pandemic, you know, some time did go by and we each were on our individual learning curves. I, from my end, was, you know, having been asked by a few organizations to, you know, as a lot of people were, record something from your living room, you know, in the early pandemic, kind of to share online and things like that. That moment where we all instantaneously learned that one of the worst things to hear over an iPhone microphone is classical singing. I started my journey of learning how to self-record, and you know, with that is a whole rabbit hole of audio engineering and sound design and programs, software you need to learn in order to even do the most basic recording with a microphone. So I was sort of on the audio end. Ronny had his organization, which started with that concert of Die Schöne Mittlerin, and is now a full-fledged organization. And he was then experimenting with, how can I present concerts over Zoom? How can I pre-record things? And he was messing with the film aspect of it. And last August, we ended up again sort of launching this experiment in self-producing an entire recital where I did the audio and sang, and he did the video and played piano. And it was equally successful. It was a huge success where, you know, over 100 people joined on Zoom, and there was this like communal musical experience when everyone had been so in need of that. You know, that was in August, we had been for some months. But yeah, as Ronny was talking, I did notice that this is like something intrinsic in us. We are inclined to present and self-produce, even when we are not being produced by others for whatever reason.
I'm so grateful that we had each other at that point. I think one of the challenges was the distance, and you know, just not being able to travel and all of that. And I mean, we were lucky. We were in the same city, and we were both also willing and
Yeah.
you know, willing to do this and to take that step into the unknown of technology and sound and video work. But yeah, it's Eddie and I performed in Grace Cathedral. I think it was in June, and that was the first time I think for Eddie as well, first time we had since like February of last year had done anything. And it was, you know, again, just I feel really lucky and grateful that he was around, because I don't know what I would have done without him.
Oh, same.
So there's so many things I want to touch on there. The first, can we tell us more about your organization, Ronny? Like, tell us. So you guys had this wonderful success, and then you built something out of that. And so, you know, what is it, and what have you learned from that, and where's it going beyond Zoom?
Absolutely. So I guess before the pandemic hit, we weren't yet officially a nonprofit. I was just kind of putting on the concerts, and the series was called Taste of Talent. And so it was kind of the vision I had for it was a multi-sensory experience, and combining music with art and food and you know, culinary arts. And so there would be like a chef and a sommelier, and you'd kind of be sitting in your seat, and the idea that I had would be like, why not just have all of those experience like in one evening? So we'd have like 5 courses, And each course, you know, like it would be pretty typical to start off with like a sparkling wine, have something very festive. But I'd say, you know, right now we're really looking ahead. I think the community aspect of it and the cultural aspect of it is something that really stood out from the beginning, just celebrating different cultures and diversity. So we had like Italian evenings and French evenings and German evenings, and you know, we had a taste of Mexico last year, and I'm very excited to explore. I've always been interested in learning about. I grew up in a very multicultural environment and multilingual schooling and environment in Montreal, and so that's always been just a passion of mine. And I think that music is a huge advocate for peace and diversity and connecting people from different backgrounds. And so I think that aspect of it is something that we want to do more and more in our mission. But yeah, I think for now we continue to do music and art because at least virtually, it's the most feasible to produce. We do give wine recommendations and things like that. But yeah, I think kind of being open to the way the arts intersect and the way arts can work together is sort of what the organization is about.
We've had such a similar journey here in Chicago. Well, there in Chicago. It's always strange that I'm here in San Francisco, but a joyful thing. But we've had a similar journey with forming CAIC over the last 10 years. So it's just so interesting to hear your experience and hear the similarities. And it's so great that you're here with us because you're clearly of like mind, which is so exciting. And
Absolutely.
so, sorry.
Oh, I said absolutely, yes.
So you guys are surviving the pandemic. Do you have any fun pandemic stories you want to share with us aside from your successes on Zoom? I know, Eddie, you were in Oslo, and
Yeah, I was in Oslo in November and December. Yeah, you know, it was interesting. I think my experience in Oslo and that was a proper stage production. So I was meant to arrive, have a 10-day quarantine, and then go into staging rehearsals for Barber of Seville, and then to do 2 months of a run of shows in December and January. And like a lot of people, you know, the job as a singer with these European organizations that have the luxury of sort of even toying with the idea of presenting opera because there's this cultural mandate in Europe and there's state funding and all sorts of things where they can run a show and they can present a performance and stream it or present it for 30% you know, capacity audience and not have to worry about losing ticket sales and all this. But even with the luxury of having European contracts, I arrived and literally 6 hours after I arrived, the city of Oslo announced that there would be no performances for the month of November. I arrived on November 5th. So then I was sitting in quarantine for 10 days thinking, well, you know, I've really tried to psych myself up and practice this role, you know, singing opera and being conditioned to opera, having your vocal muscles be conditioned to sing loud, high notes regularly, you know, for large swaths of every day is a thing you have to, it's like working out. It's like training for a marathon. So I trained for my marathon with Ronny, and we ran through the role, you know, a bunch in the month leading up to it. And then I was sitting there in quarantine thinking, are we even gonna, am I just gonna turn around? You know? But I was lucky enough to do the rehearsal process. I got to rehearse, we built the whole show. And then eventually found out in Tech Week that we would not be able to do the run of shows. But we did go through the whole motion of creating the show and you know, recording it for the archive. It was a new production, so they wanted to sort of lay it down on tape so that it could be referred back to in the future. And I will go back to do it in the future, to be announced. But but yeah, the story of creating in uncertainty, creating art in uncertainty, or in uncertain, in an uncertain situation, um, is not unique. Like there are a ton of artists that is our experience. We're preparing, we're stepping one foot in front of the other without really knowing what is going to be possible, whether it's for a show right now, whether it's for our careers in the future, whether it's for our industry in the future. So there's all these questions, and I think the universal theme is being connected to some intrinsic thing that drives you to keep yourself going. So this thing that me and Ronny have of self-producing, where it's innate. Our inclination is to, we have a month off, let's do something together. I think that is the thing that helps get through that uncertainty.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, there's just, I guess, that natural curiosity, and interest to learn, just passion for learning too. So what have I done? Maybe not music related. I've learned some mixology, and I've always been very passionate about wine and food. My brother was a chef, and so for a long time, and so you influenced me a lot in the food department. But yeah, I think I was ready to try something new, and I really liked how with cocktails and mixology you can create things. I mean, of course, you could be a winemaker. It's a much more complicated and a lengthier process. Maybe I'll be interested in doing that later in my life. But I think the cocktails and the mixology has been a great hobby of mine throughout this last year, and I love sharing it too. Same thing with food and wine. The thing I love the most about it is not eating it by myself. I love it because I grew up with this culture that food and wine is a communal experience, something that you experience with friends and over dinner or lunch. And there's no right or wrong time to do it. So I think that helped me a lot throughout this last year, especially supporting restaurants and local restaurants who are struggling and continue to struggle. That was something that I think really spoke to me over this last year.
That's incredible. So speaking of pandemic projects, maybe we should talk about your program. I know that we're starting the program tomorrow with, as you said, a sort of a touchstone with your first experiment as recitalists, with some excerpts from Schönemüllerin. But tell us more about what comes after that.
So then we have this amazing cycle by one of our friends. Nick knows him as well, Nico Muley, and he wrote it back in 2015 for an incredible baritone recitalist, Benjamin Apple, and I have the inside track since he's my friend. So he often sends me, little drafts, or when things are finally done, he'll shoot me off a score, and if it has been performed, usually the premiere recording, because he knows I geek out on it and I love it. And then, so he sent me this score before it was even performed, and I started playing through it, and I was just immediately obsessed with it. I've been obsessed with it for 5 years now, and I've never had a chance to do it in recital because I've been so busy with opera, and Ronny and I have done, his organization has sort of needed different things. So we would do a French program and do French wines with that. So that sort of, theme never really allowed for me to program these songs. But so it's called The Last Letter. And the first 4 of the 5 are love letters from the First World War, love letters in the general sense, where Some of them are not. Some of them are breakup letters, actually. And I just love them because the characters are so immediately potent. Like even in the miniature form of one single art song, like you get an entire world for these people. And I'm just obsessed with them. And it ends with this beautiful Schiller, translated into English, but a Schiller poem. What is it in German, Nick?
Goethe Griechenlands.
That. And then after that, we do another. What I'm realizing is that I basically used this recital to do all of the things that I've been wanting to do for years and years and years and years. Because after that, we go to Mahler's Rooker Lieder, which I've loved even longer than the Nico songs. I've loved them since I was 18. I remember being in a record store and kind of randomly browsing, not really knowing anything about repertoire yet. And I picked up this Mahler Lieder CD of Thomas Hampson and Leonard Bernstein doing all of the, the three big cycles, the Rooker Lieder, Songs of the Wayfarer, and Kindertotenlieder. And I just immediately became obsessed with Mahler Lieder, and specifically the Rooker Lieder. So that's been a long time coming for me, and I'm so thankful for this opportunity to tackle it for the first time. And then we close out with just some of our favorite, which is French repertoire, which is for us like dessert. Like it's just something that it comes in so naturally for us. We don't even have to, all the discussion that had to happen about Nico's pieces or Mahler and, oh, this, this phrase needs to bend a little bit more this way or that way. With the Debussy, we hardly even had to talk. I mean, right, Ronnie? Like it's just there.
Yeah, I think the French things for us, I mean, that was the first thing we ever played in when we were in Merilla and we were doing that, we were preparing to audition for that art song competition and performance. The first thing we did was Histoire Naturelle. And I remember just the way Eddie was describing that first chord and the majestic quality of the le paon, the peacock, right? But the French, I think we kind of were both kind of French. I mean, of course, now we're both fluent, and Eddie is basically fluent French now, and he's lived a lot in France and Paris and had that whole life, and he has a lot of that coming ahead of him as well. But I think the cool thing too about the French, and I'm very excited about the Debussy because the texts are these medieval texts from like 1400s or something, and you hear it in the music. And what I love is that we recorded it in this cathedral that I had never been in San Francisco, and it's just like the perfect setting for those songs, for those texts and everything. And so I'm so excited. To end off with those.
Yeah, that set in particular is so fascinating to me because you have like texts from the early 1400s set by Debussy in 1910, hundreds of years later, and yet the way that they mesh is incredible. And the little nerdy fact that I love about these songs is that Debussy wrote a lot of songs, right? So he stopped at a certain point when he began writing Pelléas and Mélisande, which is his only completed opera. He basically stopped writing songs at the turn of the century and took a decade off. And if you look at the difference between early Debussy songs and these late Debussy songs, they're just so filled with character. Like they almost have this operatic feel where, yet again, like in the miniature of one song, an entire character is revealed, and the piano supports those characters in an even stronger way, I think, than the early songs. So you have basically this art song form that is being informed by him having had this huge operatic success and basically changed the course of modern music. Just that. So he did write then I think 2 or 3 cycles after the Trois Ballades de François Villon, which is what we will do. But these are kind of the first one of the new Debussy in recital.
The beginning of his last chapter, really?
Yeah. So.
He only had 8 years left after that. Sad.
No. He used it well. He was a naughty boy.
Yeah, no, he definitely lived a full and exciting.
Yeah,
sure.
he lived.
So, what do you guys have things coming up? What's happening next for you guys?
So I'm in Cincinnati right now. I'm actually flying back to San Francisco tomorrow through Chicago. Maybe I should stop by. I definitely need to go to Chicago very soon because there are a lot of people I know who live there, and I haven't been there in a long time. And the food scene, of course.
And you have to meet, your future fans after tomorrow.
That's right. But I just finished up a very lengthy and large recording project here in Cincinnati, which has been just like such an experience, which I'm grateful for. We recorded music for the Mahler Gala, which is in April. We recorded some music for one of Taste of Talent's concerts in the spring, and it just, I guess the biggest thing was just being reunited with these artists, and making music was just such a blessing, and so much of it too, so much repertoire and variety. So I'm really grateful for that, and of course it's been like a huge learning experience because we had all these equipment, flying cameras in the air everywhere, and the venue is this Masonic lodge that has recently been renovated and turned into a performance space for a local nonprofit organization that supports artists and community. It's called ARCO. So that's what I just finished now, and we have our concert, tomorrow, which I'm super excited for. And after that, I guess I am very excited to be involved working on the staff for San Francisco Opera's Barber of Seville, which will be a outdoor drive-through experience. My first opera production that I'm involved in since November of 2019. So like 1 year and a half or so since being in any kind of large-scale operatic production. I'm very eager to get back to that, because that's really just sort of what I was doing before full time, before the pandemic hit. So that's for me.
That's exciting.
And so I have to say, I'm probably most excited about the work that we recorded with you last month that we're about to see tomorrow. But don't tell the other organizations that. I have this really, really fun project coming out with San Francisco Opera as part of their Opera is On initiative. And it's a series of five short programs called the Atrium Sessions that have been just so beautifully filmed and produced over the last 2 weeks with incredible artists that have been, I think almost all of them are either former Adler Fellows or former Marilla Opera participants. And I'm really excited about that. I sang and played some cabaret tunes, which I have done once upon a time at, in like a kind of bar. You actually saw me do that once, right? Do you remember this, Nick?
He doesn't need me. He doesn't need me. He could do everything.
No, because if I told you how much I practiced just for these 2 songs, I had to like lay down, with 3 cameras on me and all microphones everywhere. Oh, I was so nervous. Anyway, that's gonna be really fun. San Francisco Opera, the Atrium Sessions. And then at the end of April, I'll go to Long Beach Opera to sing in Les Enfants Terribles by Philip Glass, directed by another one of our friends, James Dara. And I'm really, really excited about that. I get to use some of my French, And I just love Philip Glass. I think his music is incredible.
He's also kind of best in like the operatic format. It's kind of amazing what he extracts from so few chords. It's incredible.
I'm super stoked.
I'm just going to take this opportunity to tell Facebook to, if you have questions, please throw them in the comments. Otherwise, it seems like we're answering all of your questions because we're just so thorough.
More than anything you'd ever want to know.
Be careful what you wish for. But I would like to throw this out sort of as we kind of head towards the home stretch here. And I wonder two things. How do you guys see vocal recitals and art songs factoring into your artistic and professional lives as they continue to unfurl for many, many years to come? And also, why do you think it's important? I saved the best for last.
I discovered opera after I discovered art song. So actually the first thing that I really was exposed to was working one-on-one with these friends of mine in college and doing their recitals, and the intimacy of those recitals and those relationships and the kind of music we were able to create together was really what the foundation of my whole kind of vocal world journey was based on and continues to be based on. Even when I go into an opera rehearsal and opera production, it's almost as if I kind of have this relationship with each singer, kind of one-on-one, and I view it the same way. Like there's sort of this group mentality and approach that is needed because of the scale of the production, but I find that I get the most out of it when I really kind of form those connections and collaborations with each opera singer in the room as best as I can. So for me, moving forward, art song is continuing to be at the foundation of how I operate. As an artist, working in opera, as a performer, even as a soloist, I always ask myself, how would this feel if it was a collaboration?
And for me, yeah, as far as how there was the two questions. The first, how does it factor in, or how do I imagine it factoring in to what I do? As I've experienced in my post, my I guess now 4 years post Young Artist, when you're working regularly in opera, there's actually not a ton of opportunity for recital. But every time I sort of carve out the time for it, I am reminded of how much harder it is, and also how much more reward there is, because you have to take a certain ownership of your artistry that you don't need to when you're even if you're in a title role and being produced by a big fancy opera company, you don't actually have to take 100% full ownership of what you're doing if you don't want to. Sometimes you want to, and sometimes you're like, yeah, this is the moment for me. But a lot of times there's some element of the project that isn't perfect, whether it's the costumes are ugly, or you don't like the production, or the director or the conductor gives you a hard time and puts you in a musical vice, and you have to do what they want to please them, so that there's just so many factors. And so, but with recital, you have to take a real ownership of what you're doing, because there's nothing to hide behind. And I think that there are opera singers, big opera stars, that don't like doing recitals for that exact reason. And me, though, I just love a challenge always. So when I recognize that I'm being made uncomfortable by something, particularly something like artistic, I like have to figure it out. I'm like, I have to master this. Ronnie knows. And as far as the import of recitals, like in the greater picture, I think, there's this side where producers say like, oh, recitals don't sell and all this, and so that's why you find less opportunity to do recitals. But I really think it is like a straight to the veins way to get to know someone artistically. So when you're in a good recital and someone is taking that 100% full ownership, and you're there as an audience member experiencing exactly what they have to tell you with not only the way they sing, but what repertoire they choose and how they present it, how they walk on and off stage, what they say to the audience. Like, it's like you're inviting them into your living room. You could be in Carnegie Hall and you're still inviting someone into your living room, basically. So I think as an audience member, I will always go to recital, always, because I want to see the truth of somebody as an artist.
Yeah, it shows you who they are and what they're made of in many ways and what they have to say. It's a big ask to ask even 150 people, let alone 2,500 in Carnegie Hall, to sit and watch only you for 2.5 hours.
And there's a responsibility to it, you know.
Yes.
When people gather for you and you alone, there's huge responsibility. It's scary, but it's really fun if you feel confident and you feel the confidence to be vulnerable, you know.
I mean, does that experience track for you too, Ronnie?
Yes, it does. I especially agree with how much more difficult it is, and also how much more rewarding it is. Sort of both. There's that kind of more intense, extreme kind of give and take with that experience. You really get out of it how much you give into it. And it shows, and you feel it, because it's just you. You're just there. Well, you're not alone. You're in that collaboration, but yeah, you're in front of the audience, and you're not in this production, and it's a very different feel. I do also like what you said about carving it out, and I think that it's important to make time for it. So let's say, even if musicians a lot of the time have many different jobs, and I, for one, have a very large artistic appetite. I love vocal collaboration, art song. I love opera. I love just playing solo piano. I love jazz. And I need all of them. They all kind of feed me and give me different things. So I do think that it's important to plan that when you're thinking about your schedule and thinking about your career and what you're doing, asking yourself, well, hey, maybe I can leave a month or 2 months in the year, or how many ever months, to figure out how can I get a song recital in there.
Gaps in the schedule are useful. They don't have to be scary. They're useful.
They're opportunities.
Yeah.
So do you guys think you'll make an album?
I hope so.
I wanted to do all the Duparc songs.
Yeah, we do have an idea to do all the Duparc someday.
Like stage it, like make it like some kind of theatrical through composed piece.
Like a really long monologue before someone goes to the insane asylum.
Yeah, like, there are really disparate subject matter within those 17 pieces, but
they're incredible though. You guys are total fish in water with this platform and this art form, and it was such a joy to watch you work. I keep saying to people that I feel really lucky producing these, because I'm actually getting to hear live music, which is like such a rare privilege these days. But it also was just such a privilege to watch the two of you work and see how smooth and easy and probing your artistic process is. And I think everybody's really gonna enjoy this tomorrow. All of you who are watching, tune in tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central here for the premiere of this beautiful recital. It looks like I'm going to give one more shout out for questions to see if anybody has one, in case someone came in at the last minute. But in the meantime, thank you guys so much for being a part of what we do at CAIC, and thank you for, I mean, it takes real courage to, I mean, I know we're all desperate to make music, but it takes real courage to be willing to do it in the same room and, you know, make your way to the venue and all that stuff during these times. So we really, really, really appreciate it. Do you have any final thoughts?
I just feel so lucky to have had the opportunity to kind of an excuse to do repertoire that I've been dreaming about for years and years and years, decades in some cases, um, and beyond even the opportunity to do it, I was even more thankful for how seamless the process was and how seamless the experience was. And that recording day was like, we both left on such a high. We were just on cloud nine. So I'm really excited. I've seen pieces, but I haven't seen the whole thing. So I'm really excited to watch it with all of your audience as well.
Same here. The experience was so special, and especially during these times, meaningful. The timing of it too, in January, you know, like it's the Winter Leader Lounge. I mean, I think we were entering 2021. There was all different things going on, challenging times. It was so lucky and amazing and grateful to be able to be diving into that music. It just, all the noise just went away, and we were able to focus on it, and it gave us just spirit and something to live for. It was the timing of it was made it even, brought it to another level.
Yeah, truly.
Well, for those of us who were listening that day too, for sure. You have love from Terry and Bob Ryan. They send their love. And Rachel Louv, I think is how you pronounce her name. So great listening to you. Thanks for sharing. So you're getting some love here. Everybody tune in tomorrow again at either the CAIC website or Facebook Live here, and at 7 p.m. Central for this amazing recital featuring these two amazing artists. And again, Eddie, Ronny, thank you so much for doing this interview today and for being a part of our season this season. Facebook, we will be back next Thursday for more of this Heard Over the Piano situation. We will be on time next week. Thank you for bearing with us as we got sorted out today and starting a little late. But we'll see you soon. Bye, Facebook.